Okay, this video will cover question 10, which is on EM spectrum. To be frank, I'm actually quite disappointed with with how you all perform for this question, because this question is from your homework. Okay, what I did is that in your homework, the graph, I think it is something like that. I just shifted it towards the right. So anyway, what we realize is, of course, number one, your memory not very good. Number two, when you are preparing, I don't think many of you have had the time to look through your worksheets. So as a result, many of you didn't do very well. Or another reason could be that you have looked through the worksheet and you thought that it is the same question, and then you answer wrongly. So I have a huge group of you that answer part A as infrared. I hope that is because you are memorizing the answer without actually looking through the question. Okay, if not, then the logic will be quite wrong. Okay, so anyway, let me share with you how to properly approach this question. Okay, number one is you need to know for EM spectrum, okay, only for EM spectrum, EM waves. If you have a high wavelength, you are saying that the frequency will be low, because for your EM spectrum, the speed is constant. So for speed is constant, if your frequency is high, then of course your wavelength will be low, and vice versa. Okay, so technically speaking, most of the time when we memorize the EM spectrum, we memorize it from high frequency to low frequency, meaning that you memorize the sequence in terms of frequency, or at least for me. So what I will do is that basically this wavelength is from small to big wavelengths, right? So what I will do is that since I remember my EM spectrum sequence in terms of frequency, I will write down what the sequence that I memorize for. Okay, so I will write in terms of high frequency and low frequency, so that I'm very clear that the gamma is on this side and that my radio wave is on this side. So this is just for me. It is my personal practice to write it down first, so that I don't get confused when I want to apply logic deduction. Okay, logical deduction. So let's look at this. So basically I have a lamp, okay, that will emit this wavelength, this spectrum of wavelength, and basically this axis here, the y-axis, tells me which wavelength is being produced at the largest amount. So there's a hint given here. So between 400 and 700, this will be my visible light. And as you can see from this graph, actually there's not much visible light, right? The biggest part of this lamp is producing is actually this part over here. So that's why I actually sketched this part out, low and high. So what I need to do is that, of course, I need to have a certain sensing. What is this spectrum? So I don't memorize by the wavelength number. I also didn't memorize the frequency number. But what I know is that this purple color part is containing a wave that is of higher frequency than my visible light. So what is higher frequency than visible light? So I will recall from my memory, right? Gorilla X urinate violently in my room, right? So this is my high F, this is my low F. I was told that this is my reference. I need to select, if I want to know what is this, I need to select a wave that is of higher frequency than visible light. So therefore, the one that I need to select is this. This is my unknown. So therefore, this portion over here most likely is my ultraviolet light, right? So once I have that, I gain an understanding of my diagram. I look at the question. State the component that contain wavelength at which most energy is emitted. Okay, I have a huge group of you that when you read select a wavelength at which most energy is emitted, you all quickly go and think of gamma ray. Okay, it is true. Gamma ray is a wave that will emit the most energy. But if that is the case, why would I give you the context and the diagram? So even though the question didn't refer you to the diagram, and if you are confused whether you should take the words directly from the question, or should you refer this question to the diagram, if there is such confusion, just raise your hand and ask the invigilator to clarify. Well, by asking, there are only two outcomes. Number one is there is indeed a problem with the question, and then you get a better sense of clarity. Number two is the invigilator will come back to you and say that, oh, there's nothing wrong in the question, please proceed. Well, nothing to lose, right? It's not like the invigilator will tell you, oh, okay, you ask a invalid question and therefore you will have a penalty. There's no penalty to ask. So ask if you really need that clarity. So in this case, since there is a diagram given to you and there's a context given to you, we will assume that this question is asking you with reference to the diagram. So to the diagram, where can I find a wave that will emit the most energy? Well, of course, it's this peak, right? And as a result, the wave that will emit the most energy will be your ultraviolet light. Okay, and then for part B, you are supposed to give a application for this ray. So what ray? It can be a suntan bed, it can be a sterilization for equipment, like if you just had a newborn baby, you need to sterilize the milk bottle and things like that. We use ultraviolet light. You can use ultraviolet light to identify a false money note